Thank you for watching another live edition of the East West Football Podcast. I am Fidel Barraza. Alongside with me, like always, Jerry Martinez, Kendall Whitley, and today our special guest, a fantasy guru from the NFL Network, Adam Rank. How you doing?
I'm doing real well, thank you. I excited, number one, to be on with you. This is cool, but I think that we all can agree that next week, around this time on a Sunday morning, got to be a little bit different. This is the last Sunday. Well, I saw this off Twitter, so I stole this. Last Sunday without football to like February 20th. So it's amazing.
Of 2022, right?
Yeah, 2022. You never know. We might. Who knows? Maybe Vince McMahon or somebody. Maybe Tony Khan will create a new football league and we'll just keep it going year round. But for right now, this is gonna be the last Sunday for a while without football, and I'm excited for it.
Yeah, hey Adam, we appreciate your time coming on the show. As you know, fantasy football, a huge thing. Some people are still drafting. I actually have one of my drafts tomorrow. What advice would you say or let me rephrase that. What's the number one question that you've gotten for this year's fantasy football leagues?
Well, it's interesting because Fidel, I will tell you, I still have like 5 drafts left. I'm like, how is this possible? Like, what are we doing? Like, we're really waiting to the last minute. So it's an exciting time. I think one of the biggest things that people really want to know: do we still go Christian McCaffrey 1.01, which is always that's always a big one. That is a big one this year. People want to know if I'm really serious about Austin Eckler, and the answer is yes. But they always want to know sleepers. It's never like I'll be walking down the street and a truck will pull. Like, seriously, this literally happened. A truck pulled up. Rank, what's up? Like, hey, do you got any sleeper? Like, are you kidding? You couldn't say hello? Ask me how my day was? I just came from the coffee shop. You didn't ask me how I liked my oat milk latte? No, it's jumping. No. But it's always the sleepers. And I think that's where everybody's trying to get an edge, because it's funny because now there is so much information out there. It's so hard, nearly impossible to find a player that nobody is talking about. So everybody's trying to find that little bit of an advantage. And it's always funny too. It's because some of the obscure players that I really like, J.J. Taylor, for instance, if you're in if you're in a home league with 10 people, you're never going to need to draft that. You're never going to, you just don't have the room unless you have these super deep rosters. So it's almost impossible. But you know what? I just try to tell everybody, believe in Corey Davis, and that's it. That's my words of wisdom. Although Elijah Moore will be pretty good. And I don't even like the Jets. But for some reason, I'm finding myself rooting for the Jets, and I don't like it, Fidel. I don't want to be in that space. I already root for the Bears. My life's hard enough. I don't want to have to root for the Jets as well.
Yeah, no, I don't think you want to do that either. Adam, let me ask you another thing. So quarterbacks, obviously, in a lot of these drafts, quarterbacks kind of go in the mid rounds to late rounds. Besides the obvious quarterback, Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen, who would you rank after them?
Man, this has been killing me, because I am one of those hipsters who waits on a quarterback, and I've been burned so many times. And I'm like, yeah, my 2 quarterbacks are Matt Ryan and Kirk Cousins. Sick. Although I will say this about Matt Ryan, and he's not the number 3 guy, but I will say this. I have so much Calvin Ridley that I just go for the stack. And I'm like, fine, I'm going to stack them. We're going to do that. But as to your question, obviously Mahomes and Josh Allen are the top 2. I always advise people, make sure that you know how your scoring setting is set up. Because a lot of people, one of the biggest mistakes you can make in fantasy football is not understand what your league, how it's constructed. I walked into a draft with our CEO on Thursday night, David Jurenka, the biggest name West Coast in California for the NFL media. And then it was right when the draft started, I just noticed, and I'm like, oh crap, we only draft 1 running back. It's 1 running back, 1 receiver, 4 flexes. So I'm like, okay, I don't want to take 2 running backs off the top because I don't need them. So I always think it's important to understand your scoring system. Does your league reward you 4 points for a passing touchdown, or 6? Do you have -2 points for an interception, or -1, or -4? A lot of that factors in. So you got to go in there, you got to look. One of my leagues that I play with my friends in the second city, the quarterback scoring is crazy, to the point, even though it's not a super flex league or anything like that, we're still drafting Patrick Mahomes at the end of the first round. It's nuts. So as far as the quarterbacks go, based on traditional 4 points for a passing touchdown, -2 for an interception, you want the guys who can run as well, which means Lamar Jackson. You want Kyler Murray, although I'm a little bit hesitant about Kyler Murray. But then you start getting into, like, I think Aaron Rodgers is a really good option as well. I don't think people are giving him enough credit for how good he was last season. And it pains me as a Bears fan to admit that. But he should be up there. And then you're starting to look at the next tier, because I think Dak Prescott needs to wait a little bit. Like, I want to make sure that he's healthy and ready to go. But then you got Dak and you got Russell Wilson. I think Tom Brady is poised for another huge year because obviously he doesn't run, which is why he's not as valuable as Lamar Jackson. But at the same time, Bruce Arians loves throwing the football. And so for me, that's the quarterback that I've been trying to target, because he's usually coming off the board around the quarterback 9. The run on quarterbacks has happened. So instead of taking Laviska Shenault, I'll take Tom Brady in that spot. And I'll be pretty happy about it, because I think he's going to throw for 45 touchdowns once again, especially now with having a full season already under his belt with Bruce Arians.
And my last question, I'll pass it on to Kendall. Thursday night, the opener, Tampa Bay against the Dallas Cowboys. Who are you starting? Who are you sitting?
Let's go, everybody. Let's get crazy. Like, we don't want to bench anybody. Like, why? We're not going to. Although I don't think that we want to start the Buccaneers running backs. And I really want to sit here, and I think that to me is going to be the biggest question for this season, because I see a lot of people talking about Leonard Fournette and Ron Jones. I don't like either one of them, and I don't know. And I was on WDAE in Tampa, and I'm like, how crazy am I that when that game starts, here's a piece of advice I will give to everybody. I don't care if you're streaming a defense or a kicker this week, drop them and pick up Giovanni Bernard. And I'll tell you why. Don't start him. Don't start him. Pick up Giovanni Bernard and see how involved he is in the offense. Now, if Giovanni Bernard comes out and gets 9 targets and he gets 7 receptions for 65 yards and a touchdown, well, then you don't have to go to the waiver wire and pick him up. He's there. He's free. You just added this player. If he doesn't play, then you cut him and you pick up a defense. It doesn't matter. So you're getting free money with this. I think another great, like, I'm sure Tony Pollard already went in your draft. Pick up Tony Pollard. I can't believe, I don't know how deep your leagues are. Pick up Tony Pollard. If something happens to one of these players, and you know what, and if nothing happens and he doesn't play, fine, cut him. I mean, I'm not saying to start him, but have these players on your bench ready to go just in case something happens. So I think it's a good little, like, backup maneuver. It's kind of underhanded. Like, I'm a sneaky little S sometimes, and I'll do things like this. Like, it's underhanded in a way. And I was going to say I'm not proud of it, but I'm certainly proud enough to just sit here and talk about it. I don't care. This is what we're trying to win. Like, you want to get an advantage. That's the whole point of fantasy. But I think otherwise, I think we're all systems go. I know the Buccaneers have a good defense, but if you drafted Dak Prescott, and I've got at least one share of him somewhere, maybe 2. Like, I'm starting him, Amari, Zeke, CeeDee Lamb. I think Michael Gallup's a little, I don't know. I would have to see your other options. And then on the other side, I think for the Buccaneers, all 3 of those receivers play, and obviously Tom Brady. So I'm ready to go. So I think it'll be fun. I'm glad that they always do a nice job on that opener of having a game with a lot of fantasy implications, so we can go out there and have a lot of fun.
Well, I just took your advice and I just picked up Giovanni Bernard.
Did you? Look at you! I love it. Is that not smart though? Like, think about it. Like,
It is.
who knows? By the way, Fidel, if that pays off,
I will let you know.
I want you to make a $5 donation to St. Jude's.
You got it. I'll do without that.
But oh my gosh, I want that to hit so bad. That is going to be my thing. I was just getting ready to make a TikTok about that. But when is this? Is this? Oh, we're live, right?
Yes, we are.
Okay, so everybody who's watching is getting this before I drop that on TikTok. Okay,
Right.
Cool. That's what I wanted to make sure. I was going to wait out of deference and respect. I wouldn't have put that out there until you guys had the opportunity
Exclusive, right?
to give that to your fan base. So that's a gift from Adam, and good luck. I hope it works out.
Thanks, Adam.
That's honestly the only thing I'm rooting for now in that whole game. I'm like, I am only going to be rooting for Giovanni Bernard just for this crazy scenario.
What's going on, Adam? Thanks for joining us today.
Kendall, it is my pleasure. North Carolina, do you play a lot of golf by any chance?
No, I don't play no golf.
You can't live in North Carolina and not golf.
Yeah, we had Marcus Grin on earlier this year. How was it working with him behind the scenes and on your live shows on NFL Network?
He's the best. Like he's as cool off the air as he is on the air. The only thing, like if I had like one complaint, he's kind of a Marvel guy, like more than DC, so that's a little bit of friction right there. So, but I think we overcome it, and we do a nice job. But he's great. He's also one of those USC guys too. You know what? Actually, now I'm going to sit here and just make my Marcus Grant complaints. I'm just teasing. They're great. I will say though, it's always so confusing because he loves the 49ers and he loves the Dodgers. So that NoCal, SoCal rivalry's going. And then like when the Warriors won, and I'm like, okay, remind me again. Do you like the Warriors or the Lakers? And then he gets mad at me. He's like, full well. And I'm like, dude, I can't keep track of it. Like, I literally can't keep track of it. And he's like, well, what about you? You like the Bears, but then you like all the Southern California teams. And I'm like, yeah, that makes sense because we didn't have a football team. Like, that's everybody in Southern California. Like, you root for the Angels or if you're a Dodger fan. Everybody roots for the Lakers. And then you're either a Kings or a Ducks fan. And then everybody roots for the football team that their parents like or the Patriots. And like that's just the way it goes. So we always have that kind of argument. But Marcus and I have been doing this for quite some time, and it's been a lot of fun. And I've really appreciated the way he's approached his job, his role. We brought him in as an editorial assistant who was just back reading, Stardom, Situm columns and putting stuff up on the website. And then thankfully, our production team, recognized like, hey, this guy's got a really good presence. He's got a really good energy. Let's start putting him on camera. And then, so he would be on Fantasy Live, like a couple segments here or there. Then he was getting days. Then it was every day. And now he's hosting shows and he's doing a lot of amazing things. And it's just, it's a credit to him, for how he's been able to take that role and build it into something, to be one of the most prominent voices in fantasy football. And, in an industry, to be an example, for people out there. And, I think I don't think it gets stated enough, like what a role model he is, especially for our industry. So I can't say enough good things about him.
Well, you just brought up the Patriots a while ago, and I'm a Patriots fan. Give me a sleeper for the Pats this year.
I'm going to talk about J.J. Taylor. Like, that's my guy. Like, everybody's been all up in my business when I talked about him back in July. They're like, well, Sony Michel's there. And so I'm like, now he's been traded. Mm-hmm. And then they love Steven. Everybody loves Stevenson. To me, Stevenson is more of the, like, hey, he's doing great against the third stringers in preseason. Not that he's not a good player. But J.J. Taylor reminds me a lot of Rex Burkhead and the role that he would play with the Patriots. And the Patriots loved Rex Burkhead because he could do it all.
Lewis too.
Yeah, yeah. And so he can run the ball when you get near the goal line. He can catch the football, which I think is very important. And you know what? With Cam being gone, this opens up a lot of opportunity for these running backs. And to me, when you think about it, the Patriots, nobody has run the ball inside the 5-yard line more since 2018 than the Patriots. I thought it was the Rams, so I've looked this up, so I know. It's been the Patriots. And without Cam there, I don't think Mac Jones is going to be taking goal line dives. So, and I think it's important too. I know that people are like, well, I'm never going to touch a Patriots running back. I'm like, it's not this unsolvable riddle, and we're not drafting these players to be our RB1, but they're still valuable pieces, like one of these, there's going to be weeks where you're going to need to flex one of these guys or do something. So to just ignore a team's entire position group, especially that runs the ball as much as they do, I think it's negligent. So I like J.D. Taylor. I like Jacoby Meyer. And Jonnu Smith is now becoming like a non-sleeper because everybody's in on that. Once Cam was, this is kind of the trouble, Kendall, with drafting so late, is that you lose out on the advantage of prognosticating these players breaking out. Because I love Jonnu right when they signed him. Even when they signed Hunter Henry, I'm like, it doesn't matter to me. Jonnu is a pass catcher. When they get near the goal line, he's going to be that Gronk type.
Right.
But now, instead of getting him in the 14th, I have to draft him in the 10th. But still, I try to grab him on every team.
Appreciate it, Adam.
The sleeper guru. So, Adam, it's funny how, Kendall mentioned about Marcus Grant, and when he was here, I think it was behind the scenes. He told us about how he has this love for Waffle House.
Yeah.
And he said that he's always wanted a Waffle House visor.
Yeah.
The ones that the employees wear. And I told him, well, I could get you one. He goes, no, they're impossible. I tried to buy it, this and that. Well, ask him, and he actually sent me a picture of him wearing the Waffle House. I was able to get him one and send.
You got him one. Oh my God!
I came in clutch. So yeah, it's funny. Marcus Grant is something else. I really enjoy both y'all's work.
I forgot about his Waffle House his obsession.
It's crazy, yeah.
It's always funny too, because I feel like anytime we go anywhere, like we would go to trips to we would go to New York City for like fantasy draft week or something like that, or wherever we would go. We went to San Francisco for the Super Bowl. I'm always, and not that he's not, but like Waffle House is the one that I would, because I always want to go to someplace local. And I always want to be like, we're not going to go, like, we're not going to Chipotle. We're not doing this. Like, we're going to find someplace local. The sketchier, the better. Like, let's go. I think we were in Canton, and he wanted to go to Waffle House. I'm like, no chains. And then he cleverly reasoned. He's like, yeah, but we don't have these in California. And then, like, the hamster wheel in my brain was going. I'm like, yeah, right. That's a solid point. I can't argue with that. So it was an experience for sure.
So, well, let's get back with on subject, right? With you.
Was that not on subject? That's my subject. Listen. Hold on, Jerry. You said that you've done a lot of research on me.
I have,
and you know more than anybody that I will take a conversation and steer it in any direction I want to go. If I want to sit here and give you a dissertation on the Titanic, we're going to do it.
It's funny because
we won't now, but
it's funny. I think that I listened to some of your recent podcasts, and everybody kind of asked you the same question: how did you get to become Adam Rank that you are today? And I think that you've gone deep into those, and I'll let people kind of go back and do that. But I will say this: to me, when I look at how you become Adam Rank, you've done it. It's almost like a blueprint. If somebody, yeah, it is, because people want to mention about how you wrote this letter when you were, I forget the actual grade level, to Al
like
Davis.
6th grade, yeah.
6th grade, and then how you actually were a intern, right? Not a lot of people want to be interns, and you kept on being an intern even after your internship was done.
Yeah.
And the key card kept on working, and you kept on going to work, and eventually they offered you a job, and from there you just you kept on at it, and then eventually you found your way to where you're at.
It's true.
Did I miss anything along the
way? No, that's it. And I understand too, and I understand there it's kind of a hot button issue with internships.
It is.
Because the practice of internships are terrible. Like, we talked about this, and it's hard to have like nuanced conversations on Twitter or anything like that, because a lot of people are like, I don't have the chance to intern, and I'm like, yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Time and honestly, like, believe me, I understand all that. You also still, because I have like, yeah, I agree. Like, I think the system's messed up. To me, it's a lot like tipping at a restaurant, where it's like, I don't believe. The practice of tipping is wrong. Like, the employers should just pay their employees. Like, how about you pay your employees, give them insurance, and don't make me leave an extra $3 because for whatever reason. Like, just put it into the price. But at the same time, I still tip. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't agree with this, but I'm doing it. You know what I'm saying? Like, here's your 25%. Even at a coffee shop, you're like, because now you pay mobily, and there's like, I love that they are just like, do you want to go 20, like 18, 20, 25, and you're like, you see that 25, you're like, I want to be that big shot, so I'm gonna hit 25. Don't challenge me to go 30. Eventually, I'm just gonna be like double it, like bye everybody, but whatever. So I understand, like it's a very delicate situation to talk about internships, but what I would say to anybody is use whatever means you have necessary to try to make as many connections as possible. Now, for me, I was honestly, I'm very fortunate. My parents, allowed me to live at home a little bit longer, and I was able to do a lot of internships and really go. And it was really one of the things. I went to a college that cost, when I went to Cal State Fullerton, it cost like $300. It's a glorified community college. Knowing that, when I looked at it, well, I just honestly at first didn't really want to go to college, and my parents were like, "You're going because your sisters didn't go, and nobody in this family has ever graduated, so you're going to be the first." I'm like, "But I want to go do comedy." They're like, "Nope, college, fine, okay, Cal State Fullerton, glorified JC. Maybe I'll try to walk onto the baseball team." Huge mistake. Was not ready for that. By the way, that's always my favorite thing. You don't want that story. I'll skip that. But I think the most important thing for anybody is just going out and doing everything you can. Now, for me, I was able to do internships, but I was also coming up in an era where we didn't have YouTube and Twitch and TikTok and Twitter and Instagram and all that stuff, because I would have used that to try to propel myself as well. Like you, obviously, sitting here being able to put out a podcast using StreamYard and going out there. And I think it's just important to just take advantage of your opportunity. So instead of, it's cool. Like, yeah, I mean, the NFL did pay me for my intern, so that was cool. The Dodgers sort of paid me for it. Excuse me. But I think that, we all now have the ability to just work for ourselves and put our stuff out there. And it's, about how we want to present, our information and present, the way that we do business. Now, obviously, you guys have put a lot of thought into this. It comes off, it's very professional. I look at your backgrounds, you got the banners up, it looks professional. And you're putting in the time and energy to that. And so to me, that's now the conversation. The blueprint is now doing everything you can to get noticed. Because I go on these shows, and these guys, they'll ask me, excuse me, real quick, sorry. I'm choking up. I'm not choking up. Excuse me. But it's funny to be talking to somebody who's got 500,000 TikTok followers. Like, how do I make it? I'm like, you're making it. Like, we're getting there. We're getting to a point, too, to where, these big corporations and everybody are starting to realize the value in podcasts and people who have huge social media followings and everything. And they're like, well, I don't need to pay the NFL $500,000. I can go to the East to West podcast and pay them. You know what I'm saying? Like, the opportunity is there, and we're all starting to make it. Like, it's so many times. Like, I had to go out and cover I loved covering high school. I still love covering high school football games. But you used to have to go out there, and some big faceless media conglomerate like Singleton was making all the money, and we weren't. But now we have the ability to go out and do that on our own. So I think that's the new blueprint. Like, it's similar, but I guess the spirit of it is the same. Of like, just do everything you can. Get out in front of, get in front of as many people as possible. And it's great too when you go to games or you go to practices or anything like that, and you see, the credentialed people, and it's Tom Grossi and Aaron Nagler who cover the Packers. Those are 5 years ago they just would have been referred to as bloggers, but now they're considered part of the Packers media, contingent. And it's great to see that. And I think as we keep moving forward, that's the way it's going to be. So yeah, the spirit of it's the same, but thankfully hopefully the unpaid internship part of it will go away. Although if you can volunteer, it's not terrible. Like, it's, if you have the means and you have the ability, even if it's like just local things, like even like being in North Carolina, we're in California. Like, I used to go and volunteer at golf tournaments, just to go out there and try to meet people. And at the very least, I would walk off with like 30 Titleist balls from the practice range, which were way nicer than the stuff that I could buy in a pro shop. So I felt like that was always a nice trade-off anyways.
Well, what has been the best lesson from your journey, your personal journey, to get to where you're at right now? I mean, people see you, they know who you are automatically. I mean, I'm pretty sure
That's not always great.
it's that, right? Because
I was like, hey, you're the 3-13 guy. Like, yeah, that's me.
so, but I mean, when you look back at your journey, like, what is the most memorable part of it when you look back at it?
It was just never going away. I think it was easy. There was a time, where I was like, I'm kind of over this. Like, this is going nowhere. And going out and renting cars for Hertz for like, that lasted like 4 months to where I was like, okay, I gotta get back. I gotta stop. I gotta get back onto this thing. I gotta work in sports. But it was really, one of the most memorable things is when I was in college, there was the Mighty 690 was this radio station out of San Diego that came all the way up into LA, maybe even Central California, Fidel. And I was a huge fan of it. Jim Rome was on it. So I would always go to these tour stops, as Rome would always put it, for Jim Rome or like Steve Hartman and the Loose Cannons. And, I'd always ask them, like, what do we do? And they would say the same thing that they told me, like, hey, just keep grinding. Like, most of it is, almost 90% of it is just showing up, just constantly showing up. People will fall by the wayside. If you look at any, like, profession that's sort of in the arts, where it's like actors, musicians, comedy is like this too. It's the people that are willing to stick with it forever who end up, being able to do it, because it never happens overnight. You've got to put in a lot of time, and a lot of people can't do that. For sometimes it's monetarily, sometimes it's just a lack of whatever whatever circumstances there are. And so I think to me, and this happened like not too long ago, was finally, excuse me, recently I went on Jim Rome's show. The Sklar brothers were hosting, but I was still on the Jim Rome show as a former clone who used to go to Charlie Brown's in Anaheim and hang out with Jim Rome for 3 hours on a Monday night. And I also was on Steve Hartman. I'm now a regular on Steve Hartman's show. Like, this is the full circle. This is it. Like, this is it. And then it's fun too to see like other people start to come through, and who I know who now become like big deals in the industry. There's a young lady, Lauren Carpenter, stepmom Lauren. She used to come on to my live streams, and I used to notice that she was always on. And I was like, hey, I go, do you mind? Like, I'm going to have you answer all these questions because I can't get to them. And I'm like, I'm going to designate you as our official thing. And she became a part of the podcast. And now she's on, like, she's working for Fantasy Pros, Mayo Media, and like all these things. Huge growing stars. Like, that's like watching this circle of life. Because you're like, oh, I'm probably now on the downward side. Like, I'm like now coming back around. Everybody's going to start passing me. It's like being a pro wrestler. Like, hey, I was in the main event scene. Now I'm jobbing people out for the Intercontinental title, which is fine. Like, it's all, I'm trying to be Jericho a little bit. Like, I want to keep, like, relevant, but at some point I've got to put over MJF, and it's going to be fine. I'm not going to be mad about it. But yeah, so it's not like there's one, like, I wish there was one, like, crystallizing moment that I could think about. Although, covering Super Bowls is always fun. That is a thing too. Like, people always ask me because, I haven't been to the Super Bowl the last 2 years. And I thought that every time, and I told this to Marcus one time, is I go, I always treat every Super Bowl like it's my last. Because, like, who knows, because eventually they'll, not going to be invited or whatever. And I'm like, I'm not going to be mad because I got the one. And it was amazing. And so I always try to cherish those opportunities and just really enjoy it and soak it up. And I would go in, and you could go into the media lounge and see some of the older school guys who are bitching about whatever. And I'm like, why are we complaining about anything? Like, we're We're in whatever awesome city in Houston, Minneapolis, or whatever. We're here for a Super Bowl. There's a vending machine over there that could give me all the Diet Pepsis I want. Like, how is this not great? I'm not paying for anything. It's amazing. I talked to Bill Belichick this morning. Like, what are we doing? Like, this is the most awesome thing ever. So I always try to have that. So I wish there was like, I can't really think of like one thing that really stands out, but like, yeah, like, I don't know. It feels like Michael Scott when he's waiting outside of David Wallace's house, and Dwight's all like, what was your favorite moment at Dunder Mifflin? And he's like, I love them all. And it's like, it's kind of like that. Like, I don't know. It's corny. I know it seems like disingenuous, but it's like, there really is like, it's so hard. I guess it's fortunate that I can't think of just like, that I'm not just hanging my, like, just remembering that one thing. Like, oh, remember that one thing that was great and the rest of it's been terrible. But like, no, it's all been pretty good.
It just shows you, right? When you're doing what you love, I mean, it's not even a job. It's doing what you love, right?
Listen, sometimes though, there's like, no. Yeah, it is. It is true. Like, even like the most difficult thing, because like there'll be some times where you'll be like, no, none of it's hard. No, well, it's not even difficult. Like, I'm trying to think, like, every once in a while, somebody like, no, because like everybody's still like super, like, especially in person. Because one of actually, one of the school moms was asking me one time, because she saw somebody recognize me, and she's like, oh, you must love that. And I'm like, if you had to see the stuff that I go through on Twitter, yes, I'm going to take the guy being happy to see me as opposed to the like, you're a clown. How'd you get this job? How have you not been fired yet? But yeah, no, it's all cool. Like, I don't even mind it. Like, I will tell you, like, because James Coe and I would do a show, and like 5 minutes before the show would go on, I would be like all frazzled, like trying to make sure everything's good. Like, oh my God. I'm like, why do I have a... And then like once the light hits, you're like, this is the greatest stuff in the world. Like, this is like, there's no downside. Like, if somebody wants, I'm sorry, if I'm at a coffee shop and somebody wants to ask me for a quick sleeper, if that's the worst part of my day, then I think we're doing okay. Like, it's fine. So...
Well said. I think that perspective is very interesting. I do got two more questions.
Wait, what do you mean is that interesting? You think I'm bad?
No. Well, I'm just saying when you stop, you look at it. It's one of those things. It's like, I mean, is it that bad that people are asking me this, even when you're not thinking about it? It's not.
Yeah.
It's not a bad thing. It's actually a great thing. So
I got it beats them not caring. So that's.
Yeah. So I've heard you say, you talk really highly about your father. In fact, that's why you're a Bears fan. Aside from him, who was that one person that you tried to, be like, as far as to being the Adam Rank you are today? Like, was there an Adam Rank back then that you looked up to and admired and you were trying to be like?
You know what? When I was working for NFL Publishing,
Mm-hmm.
and they closed that down, and I was freelancing for them, and I had to find another job to like kind of supplement my income, I started working for the Orange County Register, and there were two guys who worked there. One of them, his name is Earl Bloom. He was he's the former, he's actually back covering the Angels, but he was the Angels beat writer for the longest time. And I knew who he was, and I'm like, and he was working the desk. He was the best. He is the best dude ever. He comes like, if you first met him, you might think he was like, oh, this guy's kind of rude, but like, that's just like old newspaper guy. Heart of gold though, because when I was working there, he would always make me go do the subway run, and which people would be like, oh, like no, but it was great because he would always buy my sandwich, and it was back when Subway used to give you stamps for like, if you ordered a foot long, you'd get 2 stamps, and if you get 12 stamps, you get a free one or whatever it was. He would always buy my lunch and then be like, hey, make sure you get the stamps, because just by going and getting it for the newsroom, you'll get enough stamps for lunch tomorrow. I'm like, this guy is a genius. Like, look at him, always looking out for people. So I always try to, like, when I am now, back, or like, I have like interns or people who are like seasonal employees or anything like that, I always think about Earl and like the way that like he treated me. I'm like, I want to make sure that I'm that person to these people who are coming through. And another guy, Steve Fryer, who was our high school preps guy, or is still the high school preps guy for the Orange County Register. Anybody in Orange County knows who Steve Fryer is. He would be, if you ever watch like an NFL films thing and they talk about Matt Leinart, like Steve Fryer will be in the Orange County newsroom, Orange County Register newsroom, talking about like Matt Leinart playing it modern day or something like that. Another great guy who really looked out for everybody. He would always bring in everybody who was like a young kid who didn't have a place to go for Thanksgiving. Like he would host them at his house. And he always had this great attitude about covering high school sports that I kind of followed, because I got in trouble, not in trouble, but like people were like, why do you write these high school stories the way that you do? And I'm like, well, I don't know. Like, I think kids just want to see their name in the paper. So I've tried to get as many, like, I'm not really, like, I've got 6 inches to talk about Bolsa Grande beating Rancho Alamitos. I'm just trying to get as many kids' name in the paper as possible so they can cut it out. And Steve heard me having this conversation with somebody. And he's like the number one preps guy. And he's like, Adam, he's like, come here. And I'm like, oh, shit, Steve's mad at me. And he's like, I love that answer so much. He's like, bro, we're just building scrap. Like, yeah, keep doing what you're doing. Try to get as many names in there as possible. He's like, you don't need to use half of your article on a coach quote. Like, nobody cares. He's like, keep doing what you're doing. I appreciate it. So, and we've been friends. Earl and Steve and I have been friends ever since. So it's been really cool. I had one other Fryer story. Oh, you know what it was? I remember this. He also went to bat for me too, because there was a guy who covered water polo, who was like our aquatics guy. And I covered a story and filed it, because he was out. And then he came into the newsroom later that night. So I was doing a double shift, and he was all heated. He's like, hey, he's like, did you? So Brendan Adams or whoever it was. It's like, so this guy got hurt during the game? And I'm like, oh yeah. That guy got hurt in the second half and missed it. It's like, well, that's why Servite lost. Like, that's why Marina beat them. And I'm like, bro, I'm not putting that in a high school sports story. Like, how do you think, like, I don't want these kids from Marina to wake up tomorrow and be like, oh, the only reason you guys won is because this kid, got injured. And then this reporter was like, well, I think he had a concussion. I'm like, well, then I'm obviously not saying that. Bro, like, I'm not going to put that a high school kid had a concussion. Like, this is not the stuff that should be in a paper. And I'm not and he's like, I'm rewriting this story. I'm like, if you do, I don't want my name in it. And it sucks because that Marina coach knows that he talked to me. So I had to call that Marina coach that Monday. And I'm like, hey, bro, like, here's what happened. And he was super cool about it. And then he was super mad at the reporter. He's like, I kind of get what he's doing, but I'm like, no, your kids played great. Like, why don't we celebrate your kids who are playing well? This was a longer story than you wanted. You're like, thanks, Rank. I just wanted to know one mentor. I don't need to know about this 2003 water polo match between Marina and Servite, but that's it. That's my story. But like always, just, I don't know. So I follow those two guys. I always felt like they did things the right way. So I'm trying to emulate what they did, and hopefully I'm doing a good enough job.
Awesome. I like it because it allows us, right, to see the connection that you have with those individuals. And just to kind of end it off, when does the fantasy season officially, is it over, or explain the process? When does it start back up for you?
Never stops, because you got like dynasty people now.
Yeah.
No, I think obviously once the real NFL playoffs hit, I do like to write, just for our original content team. I do a little column called Unpopular Opinions. So I always keep doing it. And they always, will lean on me. I think there's the NFL Network's starting to realize it, because Marcus and I were on Total Access during the preseason doing these games. And like the producers are like, oh yeah, you guys actually do know football. It's like, shocker. And it's like, yeah, like we also know like who guys like Sam Ellinger are, because, it's our job to know these backups and everything, especially for the Colts. So we still kind of like keep busy, but I would say unofficially, for me, for my mindset, once we hit that July 4th weekend and that's over, it feels like fantasy is officially started. Like I will be probably still finishing off my State of the Franchise series that I do for the original content team. But now it's like, okay, now I need to start doing fantasy stuff. Putting together a top 200, putting together my tiers and starting to move things around. So, and it seems to get, that July 4th is right there and everybody's engaged. But, once the Hall of Fame game, because it's like, it used to be the Hall of Fame game, but now it's sooner and sooner. And at some point it'll be like June 1st is when fantasy starts. But hey, but it's keeping me employed, so I can't really I don't know, keep it year round. I don't care.
4th of July is my favorite holiday, actually.
Me too.
It is. Wow, it's crazy. So we actually.
Well, there's the kids aren't in school. Like it's open. Like I don't want to get too much into our country's history, but it's like it's cool. Like it's 4 days off in the summer when nobody has to go to school and you can kind of just relax. The weather's okay. It's a little hot some places.
Yeah.
Fidel's probably roasting in Central California that time of the year.
I still am right now.
We're still in the middle. I'm actually in Coachella Valley at the moment.
Oh, got it.
So I'm roasting, but as well. So, but yeah, it's like 4 days off in the summer. So you're like, okay, this is a cool time of year.
So somebody did ask. They said Justin Fields or Trey Lance, but I heard you kind of say this previously. You actually, I know that you're vouching for Justin Fields.
Yeah.
You're a Bears fan, but I did hear you say
Because he's a good football player.
Yeah.
How about that?
Yeah. But
how about that, Jerry?
Okay. Well, it's Jets 26. But I did hear you say if you're gonna pick up anybody, you said to go after.
Yeah, I got Trey Lance all over the place, and
you said to go after the Jets quarterback, didn't you?
I like Zack Wilson too.
Zack Wilson?
Well, I'm a Zack Wilson guy. Well, Zack Wilson, of all these rookie quarterbacks, him, Mac, and Trevor Lawrence, all three of those guys are starting week 1.
Yeah.
And with Trevor Lawrence, or with all three of these guys, because they traded Gardner Minshew, none of those guys have a veteran presence behind them. So there's going to be no quick hook. There's going to be no let's put in Ryan Fitzpatrick. They're playing, and the Patriots are probably going to be a good team that's going to run the ball a lot. Jacksonville, going to be a lot of opportunity to throw the football. I think the Jets are going to throw the football a lot because their defense is still bad. The reason, though, that I think Justin Fields, we don't know when he's going to start. Trey Lance could also be in a very similar situation. The thing with Jimmy Garoppolo is that when Jimmy Garoppolo is on the field, he's a very good quarterback. His biggest issue has been staying healthy. So for me, if you have the ability to carry an extra player, I like having Trey Lance because I look at the 49ers playoff schedule, and they've got the Bengals, the Falcons, the Titans, and the Texans in week 17, which is now the fantasy championship. There's an 18th week this year. I think that that's worth it, just holding on to him. And if something happens, if Garoppolo gets hurt or if he eventually gets usurped and Trey Lance comes in, that playoff schedule alone would be very similar to what happened last year with Jalen Hurts, where he came in. And by the way, he didn't fumble that ball against the Cowboys. That cost me a championship. Not bitter about it, but still.
Sounds good. Thank you so much for your time with me, Adam. It was a pleasure. Thank you for all the insight.
No, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. Appreciate you doing this on a Sunday morning to accommodate my schedule because I'm a jerk and I've got to be. Listen, I'm just trying to find windows when I can do this stuff. So I appreciate you moving in, making the time for me to come out here and talk about it. Pick up Giovanni Bernard and
I did.
Fidel already did it. Let's see what happens. Remember me if it goes well. If not, you can cold takes me and do all that stuff.
I'm gonna send you a screenshot after the Thursday game and see how it did.
I trust you, but yeah, you can roast me for it one way or the other.
And real quick before I let you go, like we were talking about on the pre-show, one of our guys, Isaac Durham, he's a huge fan. Obviously, he wanted to be here with us. He's a fantasy guy, but he's currently at a wedding. So if you wouldn't mind giving him a shout out real quick and making him feel bad for missing the show.
Yeah, Isaac, I mean, I know that you're at a wedding or whatever and you're standing up for it, whatever that means. Listen, if you were a fan, you would have made this happen. I don't know. I would have done it for you. Like, I moved heaven and earth to be here today because I thought you were going to be here. So imagine me. Like, my kids have been waiting to go to the pool, and I couldn't take them. I'm like, no, I got to go be on Isaac's show. Oh, wait, Isaac's not going to be here? Oh, that's great. Like, that's so rude. A wedding. I want to see photos from this wedding because I find this all suspicious. Who gets married on a Sunday? Okay, I guess a lot of people get married on a Sunday. But still, who gets married on a holiday? I guess a lot of people get married on. By the way, who makes you go? Like, that was your Labor Day? Like, that was your Labor Day weekend. You're probably so stoked. Like, oh, we got an extra day off work. Oh, no. We need you to be in our wedding. You're like, oh. And obviously you can't back out of it because you're in it. So, Isaac, listen, here's the thing. During the season, I don't want us to not get enough time together. So when the NFL fantasy football season is over, because I want to make sure we have time, we can do it in January, we can do it in March, April, whatever suits you, Isaac. We're going to sit down, we're going to block off an hour and 4 minutes, and we're going to chop it up. Me and you. These three guys are not invited. Sorry, Kendall. Sorry, Fidel. Sorry, Jerry. You guys are not invited.
Wouldn't be the first time that I get left out, so it's okay.
No disrespect to you, but I think Isaac and I, we need an opportunity to kind of like spend that QT together, if you know what I'm saying. So no disrespect to you guys. We'll do this again, at some point. But Isaac and I need some alone time. And I hope you can understand. It's no disrespect to you, but we just need, it's important for us.
Well, sounds great. sounds like a date.
Yeah, love it.
All right, Adam, we really appreciate your time, man. It's been a lot of fun, and hopefully we can talk to you throughout the season.
Yeah, I would look forward to that. So keep in touch. Let me know how everything goes. I'll be thinking about you. If Gio does something great, I'm going to be so happy. I'm going to be the happiest guy in the world. But that's all I need on Thursday. Giovanni Bernard to come through.
All right, and thank you everyone out there for watching. We'll talk to you guys soon. Thank you. Enjoy the rest of your weekend.